everyone. This is Tia Gamble from Cloud Academy. We are so excited to have you join us today to learn more about the value of customization through Content Engine. Leading today's conversation is Sales Engineer Manager Jermaine Hernandez and Senior Customer Success Manager Brandon Henry. Before Jermaine and Brandon take over, there are just a few reminders for everyone. This webinar is being recorded and will be shared via email when it is available. At the end of the webinar, we will hold a live Q&A session, so feel free to submit your questions through the Q&A box. Lastly, at the end of the webinar, there will be a survey. We truly appreciate your feedback as it helps us improve your webinar experience as we really take your opinion and feedback into consideration. So without further ado, the floor is yours, Jermaine.
Thank you very much for that lovely introduction, Tia. Really appreciate all of your help today. So first and foremost, thanks to all of you for being here with us today. I am very excited to be here with you to discuss the power of customization through our Content Engine. Before we jump into Content Engine, where you do have the ability to customize those key learning pieces, I would like to introduce you to the concept of skills intelligence. So Cloud Academy is a skills intelligence platform, but most people have really come to recognize us as a CRM for tech talent. At its core, skills intelligence is driven by validation, which simply means end users are proving knowledge through quizzes, exams, and labs. Because we're focused on customization, please note that your own internal custom skills can be imported into Content Engine for skill tracking, which Brandon will absolutely cover in the latter half of today's webinar. So to introduce you to this concept, I wanted to provide you a bird's eye view of what a skill profile can look like. So skill profiles are tracking, and this is a key piece to remember, has absolutely nothing to do with consumption and everything to do where those end users are proving knowledge. So in terms of a real world use case, take Regeneron, for example, who had a heavy project focused on both Docker and Kubernetes. Because end users are really proving those skills longitudinally over time, with just a handful of clicks, or one in this case, someone like Regeneron was able to see how they were upskilling across Docker and Kubernetes, where they were actually able to see over a 500% increase in their upskilling. If you're curious about learning more about this, we do have a wonderful case study directly on our website. Now that we understand skills intelligence as a concept, let's go ahead and get to the library. So I will be throwing out quite a bit of Cloud Academy jargon at you. So let's take some time to ensure that we're on the same page here. First and foremost, this is a public-facing library. So please come take a look around at your earliest convenience. If you're looking for something in particular, I highly encourage you to leverage the search bar that you'll find across a variety of pages. So if in fact you're also curious what kind of content we have regarding containers, you can click that search bar. But the powerful part of the searching here comes with the ability to narrow it down by specific platform, content type, but most importantly, the different levels. Additionally, if you hover over our browse library, you can actually view what upcoming training will be added to our library. Simply navigate to coming soon, and you'll see it broken down by a variety of categories. So with a bit of foreshadowing, Content Engine actually comes with the ability to create custom library categories to organize all of those custom training plans, job role training plans, everything that you're building and customizing within our platform. So within the library instance itself, those will be organized at the top left corner so that your individual end users can easily access those. But if you scroll further on down, you'll see all of our out-of-the-box training includes fundamentals, cloud vendors, pre-built role-based training, which we will be discussing more at length, all of the certification tracks, and please do not let the name fool you, as we do not only cover cloud, we also cover a variety of emerging topics and additional key areas such as DevOps. For now, let's focus on a particular cloud vendor, in this case, Amazon Web Services or AWS. One of the most unique aspects of our platform is our lab technology. So let's very briefly discuss the different lab types. Momentarily, I'll actually jump into a live guided hands-on lab. This includes screenshots and step-by-step instructions, pardon me. This is the type of lab that can be easily edited within Content Engine, and Brandon will show you exactly what that looks like. You may also gain experience through our lab challenges. This is where rubber meets the road. We create a scenario for learners, but then we break something. Users then have to apply their knowledge to a potential real-world scenario and figure out how to solve said problem. We also have a third kind of lab, a lab playground. We found this to be very, very useful for our intermediate to advanced users, especially as they gain the benefit of not worrying about having to break something in their production environment, but really having an open access sandbox to test out some new resources. The fourth type of lab that is not listed here is a completely custom lab that can mirror your tech stack. Brandon will be covering that in more detail. So now let's talk about how all of these different learning activities come together into what we call a learning path. So a learning path is simply how we organize all of these different learning activities and focus them on a particular topic. So jumping into a learning path, you'll see some high-level introductions like intended audience and learning objectives if you'd like to. For anyone interested, upon completion of a learning path, you can receive a Cloud Academy Certificate of Excellence that can even be tied to CPE credits. But as I scroll down, you'll actually see all of those individual steps I was discussing that make up this learning path. I won't jump into a course, but just note, we do follow a micro-learning approach. We really want end users to make learning a part of their everyday lives, as they're walking their pets, as they're commuting, whatever the case may be. It is far easier for me as an end user to budget for 9 minutes than it is for 3 hours. However, what I will jump into and show you live, as I mentioned, is our hand-on lab. So especially for all of our hopefully potential future enterprise partners, these hands-on labs are unique to us for two big important reasons. One is that they are text-based. Thus, this makes it fairly easy for us to update as those seemingly daily changes come from any of the public cloud vendors. Secondarily, is that every single license comes with an all-you-can-eat buffet of lab consumption. So we're providing the credentials to get into a real-world environment. So I now have a newborn, so I can't focus on anything else besides him. But back when I was doing my own studying, I like to go split screen because I think it helps me understand what I'm learning a little bit easier. So now I'm simply copying and pasting the credentials over from the left-hand side. And just with a couple of copy and pastes, I have spun up my own instance, in this case of an AWS Management Console. To be clear, you will be in the live appropriate console based on what you're learning. Azure, GCP, Alibaba, and even a few command lines, for example, for any programming labs. But the key takeaway here is how this relates to validation. So we actually bridge the connection between our lab environment and the console environment so that end users then have to run what we call a validation check. This is confirming or denying if they were successful. It'll even give them a warning sign if they attempt to continue without successfully completing this step. But because we've talked about skill validation at a couple points, I have just highlighted the specific tech skill being tested at this step. If I, the end user, stop here because I'm very confused, then I'm going to see this skill decrease. If instead I go back and fix this step, and not only that, but successfully wrap up this entirety of the lab, then all of the skills that I'm tested on will only show an increase in skills intelligence. This is why we are harping on validation so much here, because it is important to understand how it fuels that skills intelligence engine. So before I jump into the content engine UI, I will take a quick break here to make sure that no questions came in. Ooh, there's a couple of good questions here, but I'm going to let Brandon get to them regarding how to find published content, along with who is able to publish content. But before we get to that part, let me just do one quick reminder that the final piece of this validation puzzle is, of course, the ongoing validation steps through assessments. End users will come across what we call knowledge checks, more bite-sized assessments that will really focus on a key topic area. However, if you also have any certification initiatives, the final exam in that certification path will mirror the real-world exam in terms of time and questions. And as you'll see here, we highly encourage users to take these exams multiple times as it is unlikely that they'll see the same question twice. So let's take a quick look at the UI of Content Engine before we discuss real-world scenarios. So one of the most common use cases that we've seen is the ability for our administrators to actually upload any key custom resources that they see fit. Jumping into this section, we'll show you all of the different file types, which we can add additional extensions. But also a very important piece to point out here is you can also decide to leverage our SCORM integration. So in a real-world use case, an administrator of the platform may want to upload those resources. In order to ensure that it was properly understood and consumed, we can generate questions, add them to an exam, and throw that custom resource and custom exam into our own individual learning path. But with that, I've brought you to the UI. We've gotten a basic understanding of some of the key learning activities that make up a learning path within our Skills Intelligence platform. And with that, I will hand it on over to Brandon.
Great, thank you, Jermaine. Let me just go ahead and share my screen for y'all. And can you see Content Engine just fine?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yep, so just taking a step back. All right, yeah, so thank you all. What we want to go over today is just the UI and Content Engine and a few use cases that we'll have here. So, first and foremost, the reason that you want to use Content Engine is simply to customize content. This is going to help you save time, and you're going to be able to upskill the members of your team more effectively and efficiently with that micro training approach that Jermaine was discussing. So there's a few things that we could do here. We could custom exam scores. We could customize hands-on labs in order to mirror your team's tech stack. And then we could also upload custom resources and then be able to create those custom questions around those resources just to test if your team is actually paying attention. Nothing too tricky, but something very simple to just make sure that they're getting the information that they need. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the hands-on labs. So we click on Content Engine, we just go to hands-on labs, and you'll be able to see any of your published content here, and any drafts will be saved here. Just so you know, an additional FYI, everyone with a Cloud Academy license can go in and create custom content, but the only members that will actually be able to publish the content is going to be that administrator. When the administrator publishes the content, that will only be available to your instance, so no other Cloud Academy customers or users will be able to see that content that was published by your group. So first, when we're creating a hands-on lab, a custom hands-on lab, we first need to decide which environment we want to create this lab in. Is that going to be AWS, Microsoft Azure, or Google Cloud? So we'll stick with Jermaine's example, his lead, and we'll move forward with the AWS hands-on lab. So if we want to create one from scratch, we could do so here by entering a title, a description, and then below, we'll be able to add those steps. So when Jermaine earlier pulled up a lab, you saw a bunch of steps, and that first step is always logging into the console. That's automatically going to be added in there for you. But let's say we wanted the team to go through an exercise of creating an EC2 instance. So we could either do this through Windows, and what we'll do is we'll just simply just drag the step over. And if there's any other steps that you wanted to add in here, let's say you wanted to create some Lambda steps, maybe some elastic block storage. Now these, this order may not make sense exactly. This is why I would recommend that you reach out to your customer success manager. We'll connect you with a member of our content team, and we'll be more than happy to help you out and how to sort out some of these steps. But the idea here is that the way that your tech stack is mirrored, before your team gets anywhere near your production environment, you could actually use our student sandbox accounts, our custom labs, and then mirror your tech stack using our lab, our custom lab environments to help get through those particular projects or use cases, or familiarize your team with those set of tools. Another option here is we can actually go ahead and just clone a lab. So if we have any specific one, let's say we'll stick to the EC2. And this is using EC2 spot instances here. The rest of this information will auto-populate, and then you could go ahead and, like I said before, and you can either add steps to this, or you could decide to take some steps away. All right. It all depends on how your tech stack is currently set up and what you want to upskill the users on. To complete this, and let me just add another name here. We'll click next. And then we have some additional info to add. Now we could decide where we want this lab to be placed in our library. So you can put it in the cloud computing fundamentals. You can go under AWS and just add it to the different lab playgrounds that you already have in the library. You can change your difficulty rating from beginner to intermediate to advanced. And then you can even increase the time on this up to 5 hours, allowing your team to get more time in those lab environments. Now, these are some skill objectives, all right? In Cloud Academy, we're going to have a library of skills that we're going to collect. This will cover all the different vendors, all the domains, subdomains. However, if you have some additional skills that are specific to your organization and you don't see what you're looking for here, you can request a custom skill objective. Now, when you send this request, that's going to come directly to our the CSM team, and then we'll work and add in that custom skill for you, and then let you know once this is done. And you could keep going through Content Engine and finish up here, and we'll be able to add those in as soon as we get the requests. We'll click save. Imagine that's the time limit. Confirming these are all correct. And then we'll go ahead and publish it. All right, so now once that's published, we'll go back to our hands-on labs, see published, and we could see that using EC2 spot instances test is here. And now this will also be viewable in the training library at the top. Just gotta give that a second to come up. One second here. So we'll go ahead, go back in our search bar. And it looks like we're getting a small error. Let's see. Okay. So once you create that custom lab, all you have to do is copy the name, search in the search bar, and it should show up at the top. It's in the interest of time, I'm going to move on, but it will show up here just given a few moments for it to load into the library. So the next thing I want to talk about is creating those custom exams. So at the top right here, we'll go click on create. Now the use case behind creating a custom exam question is because, as Jermaine mentioned earlier, you can add custom resources. You can add any type of file type, whether that's MP4, PDF, Word doc, Excel, whatever it is. Then you're going to want to include some kind of validation piece, right? So you want to validate that your users are actually going through the content and upskilling in those particular areas that you set forth. So we can either clone an existing exam, or we can just go in and create one from scratch. So in this case, I will create one from scratch. You'll add your description. So this could be an exam that's going to follow maybe a video that you entered. This could be used to help upskill users on specific IT policies to your organization. You could help onboard users in HR, whatever, or compliance, whatever it is. You could think of Content Engine as your way of being able to collect all of that information and finding a centralized way to be able to deliver that to your team. This is the library category, so we're going to go ahead and just place that in our library and place that under exams. We could decide how long we want this to be and the number of questions, which I'm actually going to minimize. Click next. And now here's where you're going to add your questions. So you could simply filter. You could sort by oldest to newest, difficulty, skill objective, so specific skills when it comes to the questions, the author, or at any specific bucket. And you can apply those filters and then those will come up. And then we'll go ahead and, we could just start by simply just dragging, just adding in these questions or dragging them over. And there's lots of questions you can choose from. And this is a very simple way to go ahead and create some custom questions for your team based on some of the custom resources that you uploaded to the platform. We'll go ahead and save. And then we could go ahead and now add those skill objectives. Now these are going to mirror some of the questions that we chose from the bucket. But if you had some specific ones, you just go ahead, go in. Maybe we want to just do AWS as a whole. Just going back and adding some AWS questions, skill objectives, and here it is. Now we're able to add some AWS questions. All right. So I will pause here just to see if there's any questions that might have come through. And okay, I don't see any new questions. All right, and then last thing I will go ahead and just talk about really quickly is, again, the overall use case for Content Engine. So if you're looking to, save time, as you may be aware that we could actually assess your users as soon as they get into the platform, get a baseline understanding of what your team's current skill level is, And then, let's say based on these results, the team scored really highly in areas like storage, databases, and compute, but they scored low on, things like DevOps, serverless, and maybe storage. So what we could do is we could actually go into our learning paths here. We'll click create at the top right. We could clone an existing learning path. We could look at our AWS fundamentals learning path. Select content, complete selection. You could edit these descriptions. I'm just going to go ahead and click next. And what we could decide to do here is that if they, scored highly on compute services, and we'll just go ahead and remove those. If they did not score highly on storage, then we're going to want to leave those. Networking, we'll leave that, but again, we said that they scored highly on databases, so we could go ahead and remove that as well. And again, this helps with that micro learning approach where you're able to save time and upskill your team in a more effective way. And then you could leave these knowledge checks and exams in here, giving your team the option to be able to test out. So if they go through these, if they feel like they have a good understanding of all the domains and the different services, they can actually just cut to the final exam and then test out of the learning path and any custom learning paths that that you've created for your team. So that just about summarizes Content Engine. I'm not sure if I don't think I'm leaving anything out. Well, Jermaine, you mind jumping in here if you think I left anything out, but what we covered is being able to mirror the hands-on labs to your team's tech stack, creating custom exam questions based on the custom resources that you uploaded, and then being a little bit more prescriptive in how we our approach to training by removing some content or adding some content to our learning paths based on our team's baseline assessment results. Anything else there?
No, Brandon, that was a great job.
All right, awesome. Thank you. Yep. So I will go ahead and kick it over to you, Tia.
Alrighty, perfect. So the few questions that we did have, you pretty much answered them while you were talking, Brandon. So thank you for that. At this time, I want to give our audience a few seconds. Maybe they have some questions that they're typing that we don't see yet, but just drop your question in the Q&A box. We'll just hold off for a quick second or two. So yeah. Looks like we are at the end of our time today. There hasn't been any more questions that have came in. So thank you, Jermaine and Brandon, for your time and expertise. And of course, thank you all for joining us today. We hope that you found the topic informative. At this time, it concludes our webinar. We hope that you have a wonderful day, and we hope to see you soon in a meeting or in one of our future webinars. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, y'all.